Another man who's always there. He's always, I'll tell you what, when I need help on the left, he's great. He's great. And he's my friend, too. Lindsey Graham, wherever you are. Lindsey, thank you. Oh, no. He helps me on the left.
Hey, what's up, folks? We have a great show for you today. Trump gets booed at his rally again for mentioning Lindsey Graham because Trump supporters don't like Lindsey Graham, despite him being a good friend of Trump, apparently. We'll talk about that, and DeSantis said that Trump should debate him on pandemic response because they disagree.
We have a fundamental difference about how COVID should have been handled. He said he did a great job. He said he shouldn't have fired Fauci. He even gave Fauci an award his last day in office. Now, I think he should go on the debate stage and defend that, and we can have that discussion, but that's fair game.
And I think I have an interesting take on it, because I could see both of their sides, why Trump shouldn't debate DeSantis on that, and why he should. I think you'll find it interesting, too. Should be a great show. Dream Rare Podcast starts now. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of the Dream Rare Podcast. I want to talk about 2 or 3 stories. The first one is Trump getting booed at a South Carolina Trump rally of some sort again, because he keeps talking about what a good friend he is to Lindsey Graham. Then I want to talk about DeSantis calling out Trump and saying you should debate your pandemic response. And I think I have an interesting angle on it that you won't necessarily expect. So let's just look at the clip at hand. Here is Trump getting booed at his event because he says Lindsey Graham's a good friend who helps him a lot.
Another man who's always there. He's always, I'll tell you what, when I need help on the left, he's great. He's great. And he's my friend, too. Lindsey Graham, wherever you are. Lindsey, thank you. Oh, no. He helps me on the left. We need help sometimes. Republicans shouldn't need help on the left, but he helps me.
I always, I thought it was funny. I want to play it back, like the way Trump's like, he's my friend. Like he says it almost like he's like a Nickelodeon character. He's like, me and Lindsey, we're friends. Like it's kind of low key, like romantic. Look.
Another man who's always there. He's always, I'll tell you what, when I need help on the left, he's great. He's great. And he's my friend, too. Lindsey.
And he's my friend too. I don't know. It cracked me up kind of, but maybe it's not as funny to everyone else. Anyway, I don't know. He keeps doing that. I want to play this one clip from the last rally that I played last time, and then I want to move on to the main story, like where everybody was booing last time he did it, but he kind of pointed at the audience as like, oh, I'll fix these people.
And again, Senator Lindsey Graham, who is really I'm going to have to work. I'm going to have to work on these.
I'm going to have to work on these people. That's what he thinks about his supporters. He's like, I'll work on them. I'll fix them. So I just thought that was minorly interesting that he's still promoting Lindsey Graham. And this kind of plays into the second topic, which is the main conversation I wanted to have today. Should Trump debate his pandemic response with DeSantis? I think yes and no, and not because I'm a fence sitter. I think there's a reason that he should debate DeSantis ethically, but I think strategically he shouldn't debate DeSantis on it. So I'm going to tell both of my answers there, my main answer. But kind of like with the Lindsey Graham thing, I think that, my overarching thought after studying, watching how people act, I think he knows he doesn't have to debate. So like it's one of those situations like when he looks at the crowd like this.
And again, Senator Lindsey Graham, who is really I'm going to have to work. I'm going to have to work on these people.
Like he gets upset because they don't like Lindsey Graham, and he's just like, I'll work on these people. I think he knows that he can, work on his base and they'll come around. Here's the DeSantis clip I found interesting with his chat from Glenn Beck, where he said, hey, Trump should debate me on the pandemic response. We fundamentally disagree. Here's that clip.
If I'm asked to respond to something that the former president says, I will do it. And then I will provide my perspective on his record or not record. That's fair game. I mean, for example, we have a fundamental difference about how COVID should have been handled. He said he did a great job. He said he shouldn't have fired Fauci. He even gave Fauci an award his last day in office. Now, I think he should go on the debate stage and defend that, and we can have that discussion. But that's fair game. I bucked Fauci early on. I had Fauci coming to Florida attacking me. I had the media attacking me, all that stuff. I made myself very clear on that. So there's a difference there. There's a difference, too, on, draining the swamp. He promised it. Obviously didn't deliver it. Why didn't he deliver it? He will argue his way. I will say, well, you know what? you trusted some of the wrong people. These appointments were not good appointments. How are you going to do better this next time on the appointments? And you can contrast that with a guy like me. Who do I have as like Surgeon General? I don't have a Fauci clone. I've got Dr. Joseph Ladapo. He's out there fighting all this stuff. So the personnel is really...
I mean, he makes some good points, but before I get into it, I want to say why I think Trump shouldn't debate DeSantis and why I think he should. Because I think ethically and strategically are two different topics. Strategically, I agree with Trump. He shouldn't show up to the Republican debates. He doesn't have to. He's leading in the polls, and he doesn't have to debate his pandemic response because he's built apparently a Republican Party that doesn't care. If people don't care, he doesn't have to do it. If people actually cared, like I believe that they should, I think it's an important talking point. I think that most influencers, a year ago, like if you look at Tim Pool and a lot of these people's Twitters, they were like, DeSantis is our leader. Trump should step down. Like you could find quotes from a lot of these top people that were like, it's DeSantis time because he's leading the charge against the pandemic stuff and Trump's out of touch. But as soon as Trump got arrested from Alvin Bragg, he went up like 30-40% in the polls, and it's never changed. Trump is kind of riding that Democrat victim narrative to the Republican primary. So I saw the switch in people, and I hope my audience doesn't get mad at me. I mean, I don't really care, but everybody kind of started to agree with me for like 2-3 months because I was saying this in 2020, 2021. And then there was this point where like it finally clicked with a lot of people, and they just kept listening to Trump interviews, and they're like, hey, I like Trump. He did a cool job, but like he's out of touch. And a lot of these top people were like, I think it's time for him to rally behind DeSantis. And then as soon as the Alvin Bragg arrest happened, everyone's like, okay, we got to vote for Trump now because he's the guy, because they're persecuting him and he's the victim. And then DeSantis never really rebounded. Once he ran against Trump, Trump kind of framed him in a certain way, called him DeSantis, talked about Bush, Jeb, etc. And then his brand just kind of failed. Like he hasn't been able to figure out how to flip the narrative that Trump created around him and counter. And I think, if DeSantis attacks Trump, people cry and they're like, oh, look, he's attacking Trump. And when he doesn't, they're like, oh, he's too weak. So I think, I don't know if he's going to figure out how to beat Trump. So to make a long story short, I don't think strategically Trump should debate DeSantis because I think he would look terrible. I think anytime anyone's pushed back against Trump's pandemic rambles, he's looked garbage. In his Candace Owens interview, he looked like a garbage shill. In his Megyn Kelly interview, he looked like a buffoon. And that's kind of what Trump is now. And it's like Weekend at Bernie's, just like they do with Biden on the Democrat side. People act like he's someone he's not, like Biden's half asleep. Trump is definitely more interesting, more funny, more awake, more aware. But it is kind of like a Weekend at Bernie situation with that as well, in my opinion. Everyone just has to ignore the fact that Trump's making a buffoon of himself, that he's a total clown of a leader, that he's a dummy. And it's just like, oh, maybe he means this. Maybe he means that. Let's make up fake. It's like, yeah, MAGA. Yeah, this is totally what it was in 2018. So I think Trump would get smoked in a debate on the pandemic. He gets smoked in every interview on it. He'd look like an idiot. And there's no reason for him to debate because he's up 40 points. Why would he embarrass himself and look like a shill? His best reasoning for why he says his vaccine is still so great is because a Democrat told him, like he's an idiot. But I guess if we all just pretend like he's not, maybe we'll get like a country or something. I don't know what the logic is anymore, but strategically, Trump's right. The Republican base doesn't care. Like this is a base that doesn't care. So why should Trump care if nobody cares? So the base is like subservient to him. They're weak. They demand nothing. They have idolized him to a point past no return. So Trump would be strategically very stupid to show up to the debate. It would only hurt him and expose him. So it's better to just let his little media minions and loyal bootlickers just, gaslight everybody into thinking it's not happening. Ethically, I mean, I absolutely think he should debate the pandemic response because the people deserve to hear that. I think it was the biggest event of his career as far as his political career. And I don't understand. This is where I disagree with a lot of people. We talked about it in a long form in the last one, so I won't go that hard. But a lot of people say, I don't care about the pandemic. I care about the economy. I care about national security. To me, the pandemic wiped away all of that. It compromised our national security. In many ways, it opened the door for the Ukraine and Russia thing with our China relations. Their economy grew one quarter when everyone in the world shrunk. We got absolutely bamboozled on a national scale. Domestically, it definitely led to inflation. Obviously, Democrats didn't help, but Republicans also imploded the economy. Look what happened in 2020. So I don't understand how this isn't the number one issue, because if you look at all the issues that people think are above the pandemic, if you're not smart enough to see through the quote unquote deep state's traps, or the pharmaceutical industry, or the Democrats, or the globalists, or whoever you want to blame for the pandemic stuff, if you're not smart enough to see through that, if you're not smart enough to hire good people, as DeSantis says, then how the hell are you going to beat these people if you're too stupid, fake, naive, or like compromised to counter that? So whether it's that or climate change or one of the other 30 ways that they could take away our freedom, liberty, and economy, if we don't have a leader that is keen to how he got fooled the first time, I don't understand why anybody would even want to vote for that person in the first place, except for the fact that the field is so abysmal that you kind of just got to pick the lesser of two evils, or the lesser of 10 evils if it's a debate stage. But long story short, ethically, I think Trump should debate DeSantis. I think Trump should keep doing interviews like the Megyn Kelly one, where people push back, because I don't think our party survives another 4 years, win or lose, if our leader is too big of a buffoon to figure out how he screwed up the first time. And this is like a place where I've gotten with a lot of people. Yes, I'm very compassionate, or I try to be. I'm empathetic. I understand that Trump's in a ridiculously hard situation. I've backed him hundreds of times. I always defended him for 4 years. I tried my best to help him. And I think I did a good job, especially when he needed it during his presidency. With that being said, at a certain point, I think as a leader, yes, he doesn't deserve the media smears. Yes, he doesn't deserve the treatment. Yes, the media lies about him. But at the same time, he's the quarterback of our party. And at one point, he was the quarterback of our nation. And if you listen to a quarterback who throws 10 interceptions, they constantly say, I made a mistake. It's my fault. I'm the leader. They take accountability. Trump takes no accountability. He doesn't admit anything. He still shills the vaccine harder than Bill Gates and Fauci. He's out there bragging about how great it is still. He's a total liar. I put him in the same class as Travis Kelce, a man who is basically using his influence to, oversell the pharmaceutical vaccine. I think Trump's a total scumbag and a liar for that. I think he knows he's lying, but he knows his base is so pathetic and subservient to him that they're not going to do anything about it. It's the same thing with the Lindsey Graham stuff. It's like Trump knows that his base would literally like eat the dirt off his shoes, and they'll vote for him anyway. So he has no reason to show up to a debate. He has no reason to stop lying. Why would he, if his base is so weak and lame that they won't even correct him? So, yeah, I mean, strategically, Trump shouldn't show up to the debate, because why respect a base and a party that doesn't even respect themselves to the point where they demand it? But ethically, he absolutely should. But, I don't think they really care about ethics and politics. So I wish he would debate it. Every time he goes into an interview, he gets exposed more and more. But I think most people just close their eyes, and they like to just like imagine a time when it was better, or they like to imagine Trump beating up the deep state in their head, even though he hired him. And it just it feels so good to just not pay attention or something. I'm not really sure. So in a weird way, I do agree with both of them. If I was Trump's campaign manager, I would tell Trump, don't show up to the debate. Do not debate DeSantis. You look like an absolute idiot. DeSantis would smoke Trump on the pandemic. Trump's an absolute buffoon. Vivek would smoke Trump on the pandemic. Anyone would smoke. Candace made him look stupid and didn't even mean to. Megyn Kelly made him look stupid. He makes himself look stupid because he constantly lies and gaslights, because there's no penalty for Trump. He can lie, he can deceive, he can push big pharma, he can sell out, he can scam you, he can hire bad people, and it's never his fault. We all should just vote for the leader who's too naive to just keep getting tricked by the people he's friends with, like Lindsey Graham and, Bill Gates and such. That's fine, right? That's how we're going to beat the globalists. Doesn't make any sense. So long story short, I think what DeSantis said is compelling, but it doesn't matter, because nobody likes DeSantis, because Trump ruined his brand, and he can't, and that's just, I guess he can't figure out how to flip it. And I would say, strategically, if I was Trump's campaign manager, I'd say, do not debate about the pandemic. You'll look like an idiot. Ethically, I would say, yeah, you owe it to the American people to have a conversation about this, because this was the big, destruction of your 2016 presidency. Like, that ruined 90% of the good things he did were ruined by the pandemic. The great economy he built, ruined by the pandemic. The great jobs numbers he had, ruined by the pandemic. Keeping the deficit down, ruined by the pandemic, ruined everything Republicans wanted, except for like one or two things. yet nobody in the party even cares about it because now they're like mind controlled by new establishment Trump Publican media, where it's like, if he doesn't want to talk about it, then it doesn't matter. So yeah, I guess ethics don't matter, because if 60 to 80% of a base doesn't care about that conversation, then why would Trump go out on a limb and have it? I was hoping that the same kind of vibe from like 2021, 2022 carried until now. And it was like a 50-50, like Trump and DeSantis were close, so they'd have to debate and compete. But once Trump got arrested by the Democrats, and that kind of sent he was really struggling. I mean, you could look at this sort of stuff. His campaign wasn't making that much money. People weren't really donating. Even top influencers now that have his back were saying it's time for him to step down. A lot of the people that are promoting him the hardest were like, he's looking a little weak. That arrest saved his presidency. That arrest sent record campaign donations. In my view, I'm not saying this is for sure because I can only speculate, but to me, it seems a little, I personally think Democrats want Trump because he's like an easier beast for them to beat. He's known, he's very loved, but he's also very hated. He's like a cartoon character at this point. So I feel like they think he's an easier candidate to beat, since he's like a familiar face that's already been there, that they know how to, campaign against. So I was hoping, even if Trump won the primary, I was hoping it was a little bit closer, just for the simple fact that he'd have to compete and face the things he did and face the hires. But now he can kind of do a Hillary Clinton strategy, which is what he's doing, which is look at the polls. The polls say I win, I won. You should drop out. Everybody get out of my way. I'm Trump. Now I spent 5 years pretending polls were fake, but now polls are super real and everybody has to trust them and get out of my way. You're splitting up the party if you don't get behind me. I don't have to show up to the debates. I don't have to debate the pandemic. Yeah, my vaccine saved 100 million lives because Democrats told me. And, Lindsey Graham's so cool, everybody. And people are like, MAGA, yeah, like drooling, like voting for him by, what does the poll say, 60%? So he's totally right strategically. Why in the world would he stop gaslighting people? And why would he do that if nobody cares? So I didn't even care if he won or lost, as long as he was able to compete, get better, iron sharp. But he doesn't have to do that. He's like sitting in his basement, touting polls, refusing to debate. Anytime he actually debates, he looks like an absolute clown. And then he cries and says the interviewer is nasty. I'm embarrassed, but it is what it is. If this is what people want, then it is. What am I going to do about it? My vote doesn't even really count. But I want to read this real quick, because Trump and that whole pro-life thing that happened, Trump basically said on MSNBC that he thinks DeSantis did a terrible thing and made a terrible mistake with the heartbeat bill. And he explains his take on abortion more and why. He kind of like plays both sides, but I want to read it real quick in my little Trump voice. And then I'm going to, I don't understand this stuff. Maybe you guys can defend it and disagree with me in the comment section, but I'm going to read it real quick, and then I'm going to say what I think about it. So this was what he put on True Social. I'm going to read it in my Trumpy voice. Pro-lifers had absolutely zero status on the subject of abortion until I came along. For 52 years, everybody quote unquote talked, but got nothing. I got it done, all capitals, exclamation point. There would be no talk of a 6-week ban or anything else without me. Roe versus Wade allowed the killing of a baby at any time, including the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th month, and even after birth. They, therefore, are the radicals, not us. And now, because of our Supreme Court victory, the power has shifted. And for the first time, those fighting for the pro-life movement have been given tremendous power on this issue. Before our victory, they had nothing, and they will have nothing again if we don't win elections, all capitals, like Ronald Reagan. I believe in the 3 exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. You have to follow your heart, but without the exceptions, it will be very hard to win elections. The 6-week ban on abortion, among other things, like his fight against Social Security and Medicare, killed the DeSantis campaign. So I have a few things to say, because strategically, I do understand what Trump's saying, and I don't want to pretend like I don't. He's trying to say if you go too hard line on abortion, you're not going to be able to win elections. And I think in some cases that's semi-true. If you look at certain states, they put on the ballot certain abortion things, and even in Republican states, it was turned down. I think Governor Kemp is an example of someone who was able to pass a heartbeat ban and still win an election. I personally think DeSantis, I'm not saying he's doing great on a national scale, but on a state scale, I think he's doing great. His last election was great. And I don't think the heartbeat bill is why his national debate is failing. Like, I don't think it's like he came out with the heartbeat bill and all of a sudden he's losing in the polls. The reason DeSantis isn't doing good is because Trump is effective at branding him terribly, and he can't shake it. And also, Trump got persecuted by the Democrats, and that's really the main thing. I'm not even just talking my opinion. When has Trump raised the most money? Every time he gets arrested. When does he sell the most merch? Every time he gets arrested. When did he shoot up in the polls? When he got arrested. So him getting arrested is really what killed the DeSantis campaign, and him effectively smearing DeSantis without DeSantis being able to figure out how to fight back has ruined the DeSantis campaign. DeSantis passing the heartbeat bill has nothing to do with his campaign in the Republican Party at all. So that's kind of a lie by Trump. And here's the point that I want to make. If you overturn Roe versus Wade, which happened, first of all, for that overturn, if you're pro-life, Trump put in 2 or 3 judges, and that definitely was a huge part of it. George Bush put in Clarence Thomas. George Bush Jr. put in Alito, or maybe it was reversed. I'm not sure. So Clarence Thomas and Alito are better than all 3 judges Trump picked, and those are Bush judges. I'm not a big fan of the Bush family politically, but somehow they picked more conservative judges than even Trump picked. So if you give credit to Trump, you also need to give credit to Clarence Thomas, who was picked by a Bush, and Samuel Alito, who was picked by a Bush. With that being said, if you pass or overturn Roe versus Wade, now it goes back to the states, right? And this is where Trump is showing me, I don't know how other people interpret it, that he doesn't really have morals or principles in any sort of way. If you get it overturned, and this is a huge accomplishment, right? What's the point of overturning Roe versus Wade? Now the states get to decide. So if you go to Georgia, the governor of Georgia decided, I'm going to try to pass a heartbeat bill. Or he tried to do it even before, but now he probably has more jurisdiction to do it. What's the point of overturning Roe versus Wade if Trump says, here, I overturned it for you, but you can't use it? It's like, well, you want us to do what the Democrats do? Then just leave it then. If no Republican's allowed to pass a heartbeat bill when Roe versus Wade overturns, what's the point of overturning it? If your party leader's like, that's a bad idea, then leave it then. If it's a bad idea, like when do you want to cut the, when's the cutoff date? Because most abortions, if you look at statistics, it's happening in the early stages. But once you get to, I think Trump was talking about like a 15-week ban or something. That's a very small, I think it's under like 5% or something. It's a very small amount of abortion. So it's like, I get what he's saying. I agree that it's tough to win elections when you run on pro-life. But at the same time, you can't shame certain individual states for pushing a heartbeat bill, or else you're not really pro-life. It's like, I'm pro-life because my judges overturned it, but if you pass a pro-life bill, I'm going to yell at you and say it's a bad idea. So you're not pro-life, because if you were pro-life, you would think that that's a heartbeat. If it's a heartbeat, what are you going to kill heartbeats in order to win an election? You might lose an election and kill heartbeats. Now you're just a baby murderer, according to pro-lifers. So it's like, if Trump is pro-choice, just say you're pro-choice. I don't give a shit. Yeah, I know it shouldn't be killed at birth, but at the same time, it's like, I don't really give a crap when they abort it. Just say, but like, Trump tries to play both sides, and neither side ends up believing it. I mean, I think his supporters believe it, but I think honest pro-lifers are a little thrown by a loop, and people in the pro-choice movement, I think they don't see Trump as their savior. If you're so pro-choice that that's why you vote, you're going to vote for a Democrat no matter what Trump says anyway. So it's like, I just don't understand what point he's trying to make. It's like, I overturned it federally. Yeah, good job. But now if you pass a heartbeat bill, you're bad. Then how are you going to save babies then? What, like, is no Republican state supposed to pass a bill that prevents abortion? then there's no point in even overturning it. So it's like this constant paradoxical thing where, like, he just talks out of his ass, and I don't understand what he's really going for. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I'll probably read a few of them. Yeah, I don't really know. Let me look at the comments. I had a few more things to say, but let's see what you guys are saying. Let's see. Someone said, so if you speak truth, people don't like your controlled opposition. I can read that statement. Someone said, Trump made the comment that only the person more popular than him was Jesus Christ and wasn't happy about it. I missed that, but not shocked. Someone said, you could bring Roe back to the states and not believe in the heartbeat bill. Yeah, but you're not pro-life then. You know what I'm saying? If you're cutting it off at like 15 weeks, I don't think you're considered pro-life at that point. That's my opinion. And if Trump's not pro-life, then just tell people. You know what I'm saying? I'm a pro-choice Republican. I don't give a shit. Yeah, I don't want it to be aborted like mid-birth, but besides that, I don't really care. The honesty of it is the part that I don't really understand. You get what I'm saying? And I would say this too. I think this is the point I was trying to make. How far are Republicans willing to go to try to be popular? And at what point then does it almost not even matter voting if they're just going to become liberals in order to win elections? Let me give you an example. This is the point that I'm trying to make with the pro-life stuff, because I think it's very important ethically, right? And I'm speaking strictly like psychologically and also just literally in many ways, because it's like, I'm not asking you. I mean, you could tell me in the comment section, but if you're pro-choice, for this conversation, you're pro-choice, okay? If you're pro-life, for this conversation, you're pro-life. It's like, if you're pro-life, you believe that that's a life and they're killing babies. So Trump's not pro-life, or he's willing to kill babies to win an election. If you're willing to kill babies to win an election because you're pro-life, but it doesn't matter, how far are you willing to go to win an election? What if your analyst says, hey, Trump, if you dress up in a dress and call yourself Donna Trump and you say you're a transgender, you'll win 10% of the LGBTQ plus community and you could win an election. Are you willing to do that to win an election? You're not. Why? Because he doesn't want to do that. You get what I'm saying? What if they said, hey, Trump, if you pretend to be open borders and you say you're going to tear down the wall, you'll get 40% of the young Latino vote and you'll win the election by a landslide. Are you willing to tear down your wall to win an election? And if you're willing to tear down a wall, if you're willing to dress trans, if you're willing to kill babies that you think are babies because you're pro-life, then what's the point of even having a Republican Party? If you overturn Roe versus Wade and then cry when people use it to a pro-life advantage, you're not pro-life. If you're not pro-life, just say you're not pro-life. You get what I'm saying? I mean, I do care on a fundamental level, but for elections, there's millions of people that disagree with me. At least they're telling me what they think. They're like, I'm pro-choice. Yeah, I believe you shouldn't like a mid-birth, but 20 weeks, I don't know, like sometime before their second term, third term, whatever, just like, let people decide when they do it. Just say that to me. But like, I don't understand where this party is going. And I think that's why they lose. They'll be like, we have to do this, this, and this in order to win an election. It's like, well, now you're just Democrats from 15 years ago. And this is the part that even if people disagree with me, this absolutely is happening. In my view, we have to explain our side of it or else we lose. If you're pro-life and you think a heartbeat is a heartbeat and they're literally killing millions of babies a year, that is a hill to die on and a hill to scream on, because that's a baby's life. So you can't just sacrifice babies' hearts in order to win an election. Then you're a murderer. You know what I'm saying? And then what's the point of winning an election if that's how far your party is? You go back 40, 50 years ago, most of the country has a pro-life stance, or at least a larger amount, and they're more religious. Now, more people like abortion. Why do more people like abortion? Because Christianity has been sucked out of the culture and it's been replaced with Sam Smith dressed up as a demon and people, like Doja Cat, that's like openly just pushing demonic devil music. So it's like, yeah, the culture is more into abortion now because the institutions, the media, and the entertainment industry, among others, and the education system is promoting this. So should I just, sell vaccines like Travis Kelce so I could get a date with Taylor Swift? Like, to me, no. It's like, yeah, would that be ideal for my career? Probably. It would probably help a lot more. But, I have principles. So I sacrifice certain things that I can't get. I'm not allowed to get certain record deals. I'm pretty much soft blacklisted from Republican media. People don't even know this because I'm too real for even them. So it's like, that's the line I walk. I'm not willing to sacrifice babies or do some demonic shit in order to get attention. But Trump kind of is. Like, he doesn't actually care. And this is why the country is the way it is. If you look at 15, 20, and it's not just Trump, I'm just saying, if you look at 20 years ago, Obama ran as a pro-lifer, I believe, or no, did he run as pro-choice? I'm sorry. I want to say Obama ran against LGBT. That's what I meant to say, because I don't know the pro-choice, pro-life stuff. He probably was flip-flopping on that. But when it comes to LGBTQ plus, Obama ran as like I think gay marriage should be like, between a man and a woman. And then he overturned it. And now Trump's waving a gay flag and Caitlyn Jenner's like his biggest supporter. I'm not saying you have to hate that. I'm just saying, like, Obama was further right and more Christian on the LGBTQ plus topic 20 years ago than the Republican Party is now. And now you have gay Trump guys like Rick Grinnell, the National Director of Intelligence, who will call you a homophobe. He calls DeSantis's campaign homophobic. Now you have a Republican Party that will call you a homophobe for saying what Obama said 25 years ago. Like, that's how far left that the Republican Party is. On economics, it doesn't matter who wins the election because Republicans campaign like they're libertarians. They're going to cut funding and cut the deficit and lower government every time, including Trump. They make the government bigger. They add branches to the government. They print more money than Obama, and they run up the deficit by trillions of dollars. So it's like, it doesn't, the bankers, the elites, the pharmaceutical industries, et cetera, they don't give a crap who wins the election. It's all a show. Trump's a show. Biden's a show. Even DeSantis, to most extent's a show until he can prove otherwise. They don't care who wins. They get their way either way. It's not a mistake that Trump just made. You made a mistake thinking it was a mistake, and you're going to keep making that mistake because they're just going to keep doing it because they don't care. There's certain things above his pay grade. So it's better to just accept it than to drive yourself crazy following tweets thinking you're like beating up the deep state when Trump's hiring them and doing deals with them. So the point that I'm trying to make is the culture controls America. I think in order to win an election and in order to win the country, if you believe that's a heartbeat, it's your job to explain to people and win the culture back on that topic, not throw a heartbeat in a trash can to try to get more votes from demonic Democrats. Because at the same time, what if you do that and then you don't even win the election? Now you sacrificed your values. You've moved the entire culture further less. You're basically controlled opposition, moving the principled party further in the direction of hell. So it doesn't even matter. You know, we have to explain our points. And I think that's where Republicans are massively failing. We're at a huge disadvantage in the sense of we don't have the schools on our side. We don't have the mainstream media on our side. We don't have the music industry on our side, but we have God on our side and we have truth on our side. That's why an unsigned artist can hit #1 on the charts even with no money. That's why they're freaking out about social media, because somebody like myself and many others can reach more people than CNN on some days and they don't like it. That's why if you look at the top podcasts, they're all conservative podcasts. So even though we're at a massive disadvantage with the entire establishment, we're still able to compete because we have God and truth on our side. If we lose God and truth, we don't have the power that we think we have. And I know that this is going to be a far out theory to some people, but I believe if you look at Trump the first 3 years, I'm not saying that he was like a perfect person, but I think that he was much more righteous. And I think he was winning when he told the truth all the time. Like if you listen to a 2017 Trump speech, the guy had like 15 different things to say and they were all pretty much true. And you're like, dang, this guy's really spitting. The second that Trump started selling out to big pharma, he started losing favor. As a conservative, as a Republican, as a Trump supporter, you don't have the media on your side. You don't have the social media sites on your side. You don't have the education system on your side. You don't have the music industry on your side. You don't even have the websites like Spotify on your side. Everybody's trying to work against you in every sort of algorithmic way and censor you. Why are we able to compete? Truth and God. Though that outstands the test of time. It's the reason that Christians used to look crazy to the youth. And now when you look at it, liberals are crazy because they've been following some sort of like, you know, atheist, like weird agenda where their new religion is now climate change or vaccines or masks. So it's like Christians aged better, even though it seemed weird to a lot of people in the 80s and 90s. And same with conservatism. It ages better. Most people, they realize this in their 20s and 30s. They start out liberal and they're like, oh, this makes more sense. It ages better. So to me, Trump had the power of God and he had the truth on his side when he leaned into the truth. What's like Trump doesn't have the same power that when he says my vaccine saved 100 million lives, it's a great medical achievement, and DeSantis killed more people than Cuomo. It's like he's a clown now. He's just another clown. He's just another clown with a cult-like following on the right who doesn't even have a stance on abortion. If you're pro-choice, be pro-choice. If you're pro-life, be pro-life. But you can't be a pro-choice, pro-lifer. He said in an interview that he thinks that Democrats and Republicans will agree on this and that they'll both be happy. That's not true. I'm not that. You think I could go into government and get the Democrats and the Republicans to agree on a pro-choice, pro-life thing and everybody agrees happily ever after? It's not true. So it's like in the pursuit of trying to compromise on this topic, you're just compromising yourself. It's like you're not going to please the Democrats. You're not going to siphon off votes on this. If you're not pro-life, if you're mad at a heartbeat bill, there's no point of overturning Roe versus Wade if a Republican uses it to their advantage in a pro-life way and you yell at them and tell them not to do it, then you're pro-choice. You know what I'm saying? So just say you're pro-choice. He's not pro-life. He's pro-life, but he's pro-choice. He's, his vaccine saved 100 million lives and he doesn't want to talk about it. He's against the media agenda on COVID until he could use the same media agenda against DeSantis. And then DeSantis is, Death Santis, like the Democrat. It's like, he's a joke. But the joke is on us if people can't figure that out. So that's just my opinion. And I don't know if it's right or wrong. You don't have to agree. But I think the whole reason, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know what it is, I never had a record labels turn me down since I was 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. They told me to do something. I didn't do it. So they didn't want to work with me. Multiple record industries said, do this, do that. No, I believe truth and God were the only two things I had going for me. I mean, maybe talent and stuff, but they say that, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. I do believe I had talent at a young age, but I do think a lot of my talents came from hard work. I think I've been writing rhyming poetry and doing this stuff since I was in third grade, so I don't know how much of that was earned or given, but anyway, I had the truth on my side. That's how I was able to get 1 billion views. I had the truth on my side. That's how I was able to compete with CNN. I have the truth on my side. That's why the media is trying to call me all sorts of false smear names and stuff. It's like, I can't compete with their money. I can't compete with their institutions. I can't compete with their, massive funds that they have. I can't compete with, social media websites in certain senses. I can't compete with the education system, but somehow against all odds, I'm able to be here and reach millions upon billions of people. How? Truth and God. And I'm not trying to be like, holier than thou or anything. I'm just saying, like, that's really all you have when you're working against the establishment. You're not going to get pushed in an algorithm like Lex Friedman. You're not going to get, a bunch of sponsors like a gamer. If I just sat there and got fat and was like, oh, video games hurt, and I'm not making fun of video game players. They're cool. I'm just saying, like, if I would just be like video games, I'd have multi-million-dollar sponsors throwing their money at me. But because I take a principled stance against the left wing, I'm blacklisted from left-wing stuff. Because I take a principled stance about Republicans when they sell you out, I'm blacklisted from like 95% of Republican stuff. So it's like, I should have multi-million-dollar sponsors at this point. I'm reaching, my Instagram page has a bigger reach than like 99.99% of people, including celebrities. But even right-wing accounts are like, oh, well, if he criticizes our party too much, we can't sell them this stuff. So it's like, I don't have all these things other people have, and I'm not complaining because I believe I have truth and God on my side. And I'm not perfect. And I'm sure he looks at me a lot like, what the hell are you doing? And I'm not claiming to be. But when I speak and when I put out content, I'm willing to sacrifice money, whatever it is, like opportunities for what I believe in. I'm not willing to compromise what I believe, like Travis Kelce selling Pfizer shots or Donald Trump selling Moderna shots or freaking all these other like media puppets that just do a half-ass job. So, but I'm able to continue walking forward. That's my personal take, is like, if Republicans lose that, we have nothing. There's no point of barely even running if we just became a shell of what the Democrats once were. So our job is not to compromise on topics that we agree with. Our job is to communicate why we're right. There's 50 different ways you could talk about border security, but if anything, you should try to change what you're saying to make it more believable. I don't think, what if we said the same way people said, no, anomaly, Trump has to cave on abortion in order to win an election. Okay, then that's not pro-life then. Because if you're pro-life, if you're not, you don't think it's a life, then it's like, it's whatever. It's just a bunch of clump of cells or whatever. But if you're pro-life, you believe it's a life. So you're literally killing life in order to win an election. That's insane. What else will you do to win an election? Will you dress up as a tranny? Will you knock your wall down to try to get Hispanic votes? Not saying all Hispanics like that, but the young ones probably do, like more than not. It's like, of course not. There's certain topics Trump won't cave on, and he shouldn't cave on any topic. If anything he should change, I would never say, knock your wall down, Trump, so we can win the election. You know what I'm saying? Open the jail so we can win the election. Let migrants invade, but ones that like you. Like, I'm not saying all that stuff. It's like, no, stand firm with what you believe if it's righteous. The only thing, if I could change anything about myself or others, I'm not trying to be like overly nitpicky, but it's like, the messaging, sometimes there's a way to get that message across, including myself. I make this mistake often, but to be fair, and maybe this is not right, I'm tougher on conservatives and Republicans. It's not because I hate you. It's not because I don't like Trump supporters. I just assume that, no offense to liberals, but it's true. I just assume that conservatives and Trump supporters and Republicans are tougher. So I feel like I can do this and people will get it because, like, naturally, I feel like we're a tougher crowd. So it's like I could be a little bit meaner and people will get it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I should be nicer, but like I do it out of respect because I know that you guys are not like fragile liberals that will like melt into a puddle if I call the wrong pronoun. So I just, I kind of go a little harder. But when it comes to like Republicans, I think their messaging sucks. And, I'm not trying to be like super comparative, so I just do my own stuff. But like, if anything, I would never tell Trump to cave on the border issue. I would tell him to go harder, but at the same time, messaging, you know what I'm saying? Because I think Trump, in many ways, the media will just smear you and they've taken him out of context. I don't believe his messaging was that bad. But in general, I think he kind of, in some ways, does the worst of both worlds, where his messaging can be like aggressive, but then he doesn't even do what he said he was going to do. So it's like his base is like rah, 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 thinking he did it because he said it. The liberals are freaking out because they think he's Hitler or something. And then Trump doesn't even do it. It's like on DACA, he's like, oh, I don't know what to do. It's like, dude, they already think you're literally like a fascist dictator, yet you cave on like 90% of your issues. You cave on abortion, you cave on COVID, you cave on the vaccine, you cave on DACA. It's like you're perceived as if you're this like, crazy guy, and you're actually like Trump's like a moderate liberal who will compromise any topic in order. Like, he's really not even like that conservative on a scale. He's like, I don't even think he has any core beliefs besides his own self and maybe like the border wall. He definitely likes that. But long story short, if I would change anything about him, which I wouldn't, because he is who he is, I don't like to like be like, well, what if he was it? He's not. He's Trump, and Trump, he's a legend because of who he is. But don't cave your values, Trump. Think about how you say it. You know what I'm saying? That's the only thing. You don't have to abort babies to win an election. You just have to explain why you're on the right side of history and be like, listen, you got to draw the line somewhere. I think that this is like the most compelling point. Where do Democrats draw the line? They're afraid to draw the line at like 20 weeks, 25. They're all afraid to make a line because they want to seem pro-choice. So it's like baby, 35 weeks. Like, you got to draw the line somewhere. After birth, you want to just hit it with a hammer, whack-a-mole? No. Where's your line? That's what I would ask every Democrat to change the narrative. Where's your line? I'll tell you where mine is. Where's yours? I don't know. They don't have a line, so we could look more moral on this topic simply by being like, listen, look at Ralph Northam talking about after birth. Look at these people at this week. We need to draw a line somewhere. And to me, the compromise is a heartbeat. I think that's the compromise. I don't think that's too far. I think that's the compromise. You know what I'm saying? That's the obvious, like, if you don't believe in conception, here's a compromise. It's pretty easy to follow. Just don't do, you have 5 weeks. Like, that's a compromise. That's not like a full-throated, banning abortion. It's beyond a compromise. But Trump is willing to push that line further. It's like, so we need to explain why we're right, not do the wrong thing to please the wrong people. Because at the end of the day, and I think this is like, I know that I'm not perfect. I know that I've sinned and I have flaws and I have a long way to go. But at the end of the day, when I think about what I'm doing, sometimes I get bummed out. Like when the media writes a bunch of smear pieces about me, I get a little bummed out for 48 hours. Then I think it's funny. When certain bad things happen or certain like consequences of what I'm doing happening, it bums me out for a little bit. But then I get appreciative because I'm like, you know what? I'm not trying to please these bad people. I'm not trying to please the media. I'm not trying to please the demons in this world or the psychopaths that put out this demonic music and the idiots that push pharmaceutical pills on the nation and GMO Roundup sprayed pesticides. I'm not trying to please those people. At the end of the day, I'm trying to please God. I fall short. I'm not saying I do. I'm not pretending to, but that's my goal. So it's like when I get consequences from the demons and the evil people and that type of stuff, I'm actually fine with it, where it's like, I'd rather that than walk down the path to these people and compromise with these people and have these people like me You get what I'm saying? It's like, that's not what I want. So at the end of the day, you can't please everybody. It's better to do the right thing and take the consequences for it than to constantly do the wrong thing. Because if you do the wrong thing 50,000 times and then you don't even win your election, now you feel really stupid. You compromise on all your values. You stood for nothing. You're not even really a man anymore. And you lost an election. It's like, now what are you? You're just a puddle of fake compromises and caving to the devil. Like, I feel like we need to explain why we're right, and it's going to age well. It's going to age well very quickly, just like the border wall is going to age well, just like basic common sense is going to age well. We don't have to cave on every single issue, but that's like a Republican status quo. And that's why the Republican Party now, you could look at, if you compare them to Bill Clinton, Trump Republicans are further left on LGBTQ plus than Obama and Clinton. Trump Republicans are way further left when it comes to deficit and spending than Clinton and Obama, but especially Clinton. Trump Republicans are further left on crime. They call Bill Clinton a racist for doing a 3 strikes bill, and Trump did a prison break bill. You know what I'm saying? And I don't care which one you believe, but it's like, in every way, like the Democratic Party used to be further right than the Republican Party 20 years ago. You know what I'm saying? And now you got Rick Grinnell calling people homophobes, and you know what I'm saying? It's insane. I was thinking about doing a whole show on this, but I might just do a little bit. Charlie Kirk is complaining about the Anti-Defamation League because they're calling everything white nationalist and anti-Semitic. And you know what I'm saying? Like, numbers are anti-Semitic and they just hate conservatives or whatever. And the funny thing is, I'm not saying Charlie Kirk is controlled opposition because I think he means well, but on this topic, he is controlled opposition, whether he realizes it or not, because I'm going to explain it real quick as concise as I can. And this is the number one reason why the media hates me, not just left-wing media, but right-wing media. And I don't care, because this is true. They have something called a working definition of anti-Semitism. It's the IHRA working definition of anti-Semitism. And it's basically hate speech laws that they've accumulated that they say all of these are anti-Semitism. And they're taking that working definition of anti-Semitism and they're lobbying governments to pass this legislation. And if you go to the Anti-Defamation League's website, which Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro claim is just a left-wing thing, even though all these institutions agree with it and do it, you can see that the ADL is lobbying the EU and others to do this working definition of anti-Semitism and pass these hate speech laws into legislation. And the same exact definition that the ADL is telling governments around the world to push is the same working definition of anti-Semitism that Donald Trump passed through executive order and Ron DeSantis passed through multiple bills. So the Republicans are in on it completely. They just have to act like only the left wing's doing it. And when you say they're in on it too, they'll call you an anti-Semite. So it's like, in every shape of the word, the whole Trump spectacle and the DeSantis spectacle, it's all just a clown show to get average Americans to think that these people are fighting for them when they're not, when they're passing hate speech laws, when they're sold out to the pharmaceutical industry, in the case of Donald Trump, when they're, majestically just hiring all these bad people saying, Lindsey Graham's my friend. You get what I'm saying? It's all a clown show. And the sad part is, the more that I understand, the more that left-wing media and right-wing media tries to ruin my life, the more that I'm blacklisted from conservative events, because they need to just maintain their little stupid illusion and fake fight. And it's like, it is what it is, because I'll never be that person. I'll never be a sellout. I'll never just, cave to jokes, because if I believe in the First Amendment, I'm not going to compromise it because I want to go to a Trump rally or something like that. That's not what I'm going to do. There's nothing to do with hating people. It has everything to do with the president of the First Amendment and basically subverting America into countries where you're not allowed to speak freely and have the freedom of expression. And in America now, with most corporations and how much they control, it's almost like a public sphere. You have the freedom of expression to be a demon. You have the freedom of expression to be a psychopath. You have the freedom of expression to be a Satan worshiping idiot. But you don't have the freedom to be a Christian. You don't have the freedom to be a conservative. You don't have the freedom to vote for Trump over, the other person. They'll call you all sorts of names and stuff. So it's like, they don't actually believe in freedom of expression and freedom of speech on the left, but the Republican Party's controlled opposition on that topic. Just like they are in everything. Republican parties controlled opposition with banking. Republican parties controlled opposition with the pharmaceutical industry. If you can't tell, Republican parties controlled opposition with the deficit that they just keep rising up. They're a bunch of socialists pretending to be libertarians. It's like, now they're controlled opposition on abortion. It's like the leader of the Republican Party overturned Roe versus Wade just to yell at pro-lifers for passing a bill to save babies. It's like, okay, then you're not even pro-life. Just stop pretending to be. How are you going to get votes saying you're pro-life and then saying you're pro-choice? Who on the pro-choice side is going to vote for you over Gavin Newsom or you over Joe Biden? They're not. They're going to vote for Biden. But, I digress. I think it's our duty and our job to explain our points. And I think that when you explain them with empathy and sympathy and conviction, people will start to wake up to these talking points. The same way people are mentioning Ron Paul. Ron Paul woke me up to libertarian worldview when I was young. I wasn't a libertarian, but I liked Ron Paul because I believed Ron Paul. I trusted Ron Paul. My instinct told me he was the real one on the stage. I liked Ron Paul. I mentioned his name in rap songs in 2012 whenever he was running for office. And I know someone in my family told me that one of my younger cousins, they're like super Democrat, super liberal, but they started liking RFK Jr. If you're going to be liberal, it's better to like RFK Jr. than it is to like Hillary Clinton or AOC. So that's progress. Like, why does a young kid who's super liberal that doesn't believe in conservatism yet, why do they like RFK? It's his approach. He's convincing. He talks about Roundup. He talks about pharmaceutical stuff, and he does it in a way where you're like, yo, I'm a registered Republican. I don't know if I'd vote for RFK, but he's right about that because he is. He's right. He's talking about things that most people aren't talking about. And that's how you gain a following. Some of my biggest videos ever defending Trump, I got millions of Democrats to wake up out of the spell. And it was because I explained it well. I didn't sit and say, well, and this is what Trump's doing with the pro-choice stuff. It's like, if I would have sat and said, oh, well, everybody in my industry, everybody in the media, the city I live in, they're all telling me I can't like Trump. So even though I do like Trump, I'm just going to pretend like I don't like Donald Trump to save myself. Like, that's called being a coward. I didn't do that. I could have done what Trump did on pro-choice, pro-life and say, hey, we got to compromise to win over people. I could have compromised and been like, yeah, F Trump. Okay, give me a job. I'll rap like Eminem and say, that's an awfully hot coffee pot. Should I drop it on Donald Trump? Probably not. I dropped my coffee pot on Donald Trump. I got my vaccine. I wear a mask. Please let me date Taylor Swift now. I'm wearing my Pfizer shot. I could have done that, but I was like, no, I think that Trump's not that bad. I think that Trump is actually doing a lot of cool things. And I'm going to say it. I don't care what the cost is. And what I did was I used my voice to explain it thoughtfully, articulately, compassionately, accurately, show proof. And I got thousands upon hundreds of thousands of messages like, hey, my parents were, I met someone, I'm not going to say who, but like, they were like, my parents work for a late night show and they're Republicans now. They watched your video. They're lifelong liberals and they believed your video. It was because I didn't cave on what I believed. I just thought about how to say it to people who don't understand it. And that's where Republicans are failing. They don't know how to say things to people and they just constantly fight the people who don't believe it. And in many ways, it just makes them go further left. Like if I watched a bunch of videos of the dumbest Republicans just yelling on their podcast, I'd probably be left wing too in college. You know what I'm saying? Like I would be like, yeah, I don't want to be that. That's not like, I used to watch Sean Hannity and be like, I thought I wasn't a Republican because I knew that the war was fake. And I knew, I'm not going to say it was fake, but it was a war that wasn't as righteous as the media was selling it. And Sean Hannity was Mr. Warmonger. So I thought I was more left than right just because George Bush was in office. And I never trusted the Bush agenda. I saw through that from day one. So it was people like Sean Hannity that actually pushed me further to the left. Even though he's supposed to be a Republican talking head, I knew he was full of crap. I knew George Bush was full of crap. So I was like, that's not me. So maybe I'm the other side. And then Obama got in and I never trusted Obama. I never thought he was like a savior. I saw right through that. I was like, he's a puppet. And maybe he'll be better than Bush, barely, but he's not going to do that much. That was my thoughts when he got in. I always kind of saw through stuff, but I always leaned a little more left because they captured me with their narratives. They got me with certain like, we got to save the environment. And I'm like, okay, I want to save the environment. I like clean air, clean water. And then they got me with that narrative. And then it wasn't until I saw through it years later that I'm like, oh, wait, no, that's not what I thought it was. I thought Leonardo DiCaprio was a hero. They emotionally and also scientifically tricked me temporarily into believing that they were like saving the world. So I think when we look at it like this, we don't have to compromise on all our values. Like, I'm not going to sit, the one time they brought me on the television network, they wanted me to talk about climate change, and I crushed it. I really I explained it. I didn't just call, Greta Thunberg a libtard or whatever. It's like, I explained scientifically why I believe that they're exaggerating. And it's like, that's how you wake up kids, not just like, shut up and gas guzzle, you little libtard. It's funny, but it's like, that doesn't wake the kids up. You got to be convincing. They got to believe you. If they look at you and they don't like what you're saying, and they don't like you, and they don't believe it because you don't know how to explain it, then they're going to go listen to someone else who's more convincing. So not everyone can do that. Someone said, are you getting to a point? The point is, we don't have to compromise on our values. We have to better explain it. If you believe a heartbeat's a life, then you have to explain why it's a life and why it makes sense to at least draw the line there instead of at 20 weeks, and use science and use pictures and use logic and use emotion. You can't just say, I'm going to throw that in the trash bin to try to win an election, because then you don't have God on your side and you don't have truth on your side. And it's good luck going up a hill against the media, against the establishment, without those two things on your side. Because to me, God and truth transcend time. It's why no matter how much they lie, how much they deceive, how much the media subverts, how much the education system misleads, over time, people still come back to Christ. I guarantee you, the next couple of years, there's going to be more people going to Islam and Christianity than there have been in a long time, just based off of how wicked things are getting. And people want discipline. People need structure. So they're like, listening to liberalism is like a slow death. It's like, give me something, give me God, give me structure, give me like basic order of men and women. Like, please, people are going to be begging for it. They already are. Someone said, God bless Anomaly. May we all have some courage, critical thinking, and foresight. Keep doing it. The world needs you. Thank you. Appreciate it. But, that's my take. I don't want to stay over an hour because I think it makes more sense to keep it under. But, I would love to see Trump and DeSantis debate. I don't think it's going to happen. Ethically, it should. Strategically, Trump shouldn't. The Lindsey Graham thing was just minorly interesting. Don't really want to harp on that too much. And moving forward, the only way we're going to win America back, or whatever people are trying to do, or evolve it to a thing that it's never been in a better way, we have to be convincing with our narrative and be honest with our narrative and show people that we're authentic with it. We have compassion, we have thoughtfulness, and we're not leading with anger. We're not leading with like, screw the environment. Like, that's not going to wake a kid up. You could say it. Every American has a right to think what they want. You might not care what other people think. And honestly, in many ways, that's cool. I mean, you're not going to be a podcaster that helps or stuff, but at the same time, not everyone has to do everything. So if you are faithful, if you don't give a shit, I think there's something honorable about that as well. But I think culturally, if we're talking about elections and we're talking about like where the nation is in 10 years, we do have to gain some sort of numbers in order to achieve anything, and get stuff done. I think that's the only way it's going to happen. Maybe it's not supposed to happen. Some people think that it's meant to fail, and they're planning accordingly. But I guess my point is this too, because some Christians will say like, we're for sure at the end times and it's going to fail. And then the same, and I'm not saying everybody, because some just say that, like, I don't care about politics. It's going to fail. It's meant to fail. I'm planning accordingly. I'm getting right with God. I respect that. But so many people that say that, then they'll turn around and be like, Trump 2024, he's all I care about. He's going to save America. It's like, I thought America wasn't supposed to be saved. It's like, well, it's not. It's like, okay, then how's it going to get saved with him? Because I want it to. It's like, okay, then are we going to work to make it fix it? No. It's like, I don't know. I don't get where that's all going, but that's just my personal opinion. So I think it's worth trying while we're here. I'm not just going to sit on the couch and like give up. So I think we can win the numbers game, but it's gonna come from us not compromising, because once we compromise on our values, which Republicans compromise on like 80-90% of them, then we've already lost. We're basically throwing in the white flag and being like, you know what, you win. Like, yeah, we passed Roe versus Wade, but you won. Don't use it. Yeah, we'll print the money. You won. The vaccine's amazing. You won. It's like, it's the white flag party. Just wave the white flag and give up. I'm not giving up. It's like, no, I think we just need to explain it to more and more people and they'll figure it out. But that takes honesty. That takes thoughtfulness. That takes in many ways empathy and compassion. And it takes a convincing argument. And I'm not saying I'm the be all end all, because there's other people that do stuff even better than me. But in general, I want to say, I think showing people is an effective narrative. When I do certain videos and I like show the video, I'm trying to get back to that more. I think that works really well, because if I just tell people, hey, just trust me, believe me, you should do what I do, it's like, wait, why? But if you show, like, some of my most effective videos, I'm just like, here's why I think what I think, here's all the things, and that's where I came up with my conclusion. Then it's like, oh, people get it. Real quick, it's like I remember Scott Adams was like, with the vaccine, he was like, oh, people can't make, they can't make the decision for themselves, or like they don't know better than the experts. Like, that's looking at your audience and being like, oh, they don't know. I look at my audience and I'm like, they know. I think everybody here is smart enough to figure it out. I don't think they necessarily need me. So that's why I like to show proof, because I'm like, I don't want you to believe me because I said it. I want you to believe me because you see it also. God bless you guys. Let's keep it under an hour. Appreciate you. Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to